As a finance professional in a disrupted business landscape, what does it take to be in demand? What does it take to attract great paying international roles? If you're an ICAN member, it'll just take one exam. That's all it takes to complete the globally recognized CIMA professional qualification and the internationally respected CGMA designation. As a CIMA member and a CGMA designation holder, employers will look at you as a finance professional, constantly acquiring new skills to add value to the business. That's why they'll be willing to pay premium to hire and retain you. If you have 5 years of relevant experience and are an ICAN member, you can directly sit for the final exam of the CIMA Professional Qualification, the Strategic Case Study Exam. Start studying the CIMA Professional Qualification. Prepare to make an impact.
Good evening, my professional colleagues, friends of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, students, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure to welcome you to another episode of ICAN on Air. And today is Thursday, June 15, 2023. And like we always mention on the program, our dear Institute has created this interesting program for us to expand on our knowledge, to learn from experts, and also to know what we do in the different industries where we belong and how this would impact on our lives. So today, we are discussing how to reform the tax administration in Nigeria. And my name is Fumi Olani. And I have my co-anchor here, as usual. They call us the twin on stage, Tosin Akikumi. So we're going to be discussing the reform in the tax administration in Nigeria. And to do justice to this topic, is the number one tax man himself. Mr. Muhammad Nami is the chairman of Federal Inland Revenue Service. Before we bring him in, we'd like to go on a commercial break and we'll be right back. Thank you so much for joining us again. Okay, I guess perhaps Tosi, you're welcome, and we'll say welcome again our colleagues, our friends of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. Today is a different day because we all talk about tax, we all talk about how it impacts on our lives, and right here today, we want to bring to your rooms, to your doorstep, what we discuss every day. Every day, everyone talks about tax. You say, do you pay your tax? Do I pay my tax? So right now, I'm going to give you the profile of the very interesting guest that we have in the studio today. Mr. Nami, I always call him, but I mean, let me not unleash this particular joke we mentioned. So Mr. Nami is the current executive chairman of Federal Inland Revenue Service. As the executive chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, he is automatically the chairman of the Joint Tax Board, the JTB. He is the immediate past chairman of the African Tax Administrators Forum, ATAF. He is also the current president of the Commonwealth Association of Tax Administrators, Qatar. These roles have invariably conferred on him the need to contribute to the growth and development of Nigeria, Africa, and Commonwealth nation. Mr. Muhammad is a well-trained tax and accounting management professional with highly rated qualifications and professional practicing license from relevant professional bodies. And, he has 3 decades of practical working experience in auditing, in tax management, in advisory. And Mr. Nami is a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, CITN, is an associate of the National Accountant of Nigeria, is an associate in the institute, and also a chartered institute of stockbrokers, and as well as an associate member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. That is what we are going to unleash today. So, under his visionary leadership, at the FRS in 2022, he achieved an unprecedented revenue collection of 10.1 trillion, which is highest tax collection ever made in the history of the country. You know, as a result of his innovative leadership, he has attracted many awards to the FRS and himself. In October 2022, His Excellency, that's the former president of Nigeria, conferred on him Excellence in Public Service Award for fiscal reforms at the FRS. He was also backed with the Leadership Newspaper Year 2022 Public Servant Award, as well as the Business Day Newspaper Excellence in Public Service Award 2022. And in May 2023, he was awarded the 2023 Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria ICAN Merit Award. So we are going to bring in our special guest, but Tosi, should we unleash our guests to our dear audience? Okay, before we bring him in, we'd like to go on a commercial break, and we'll be sure to see our special guest very soon. Okay, welcome. Welcome back. It's still your special program, your innovative, educative, and informative program, ICAN on Air. And we can see our guests in the studio. Tosi?
Yes, for me, of course, if we are discussing today reforming tax administration in Nigeria, of course, the only person that can do justice to that topic is the number one tax officer in the country, and that's the person of Mr. Muhammad Nami. It's a pleasure having you today, our executive chairman. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Okay, you're welcome. You're welcome. Once again, we want to congratulate you on your recent feat in terms of joining the ICAN family. We are so glad to have you here. And if you would not mind, the executive chairman of FRS, would you like to take us through your journey of how you eventually became a member of the institute so that our viewers at large could actually learn from your experience?
Well, thank you very much. I thought you have brought me here to just talk about taxation. But if you want me to start discussing myself with you, then that is a good one. My journey, for me, ever said at the beginning of the program, my interaction, my association, my dealing with ICAN directly and indirectly, working in an ICAN-dominated family started about 30 years ago. And because of certain reasons that are best known to me, I decided not to write the exam. Rather, I concentrated in writing the exam that has to do with what I was doing in the office, which is the CITN exam. And then because I only worked in the audit department for about 2 years, and I was transferred permanently to the tax department. So having spent over 2 decades overseeing the tax department of the firm I was working with, which is PK Professional Services, I decided, after I was appointed into a presidential committee in 2017, after the committee work, I decided now to settle down because I was very close to the partners, particularly the managing partner, and practically administrative works, marketing, taxation were on top of were all my responsibility. So I didn't have time to settle down. So I decided to leave PKF so that I can settle down and then register for ICAN sometimes in 2019. Immediately I finished registration and processing my exemption. And then Mr. President come knocking again to say we needed somebody to help us work the reforms we're envisaging in FRS. And then that is how I found myself there. However, before I was appointed, I started my training with top-notch tuition class in Abuja.
Interesting. Oh.
Young girls and boys, but instead of joining the executive class for those people that will have money to buy big cars and all those things, I used to drive big cars there too, but I'll go and park in the midst of the younger ones, and I was actually having my lecture together with not only young girls and boys, but even staff of FI. But some of them didn't know me that time. I wasn't their chairman. So I could remember mentioning to some of them after I've passed my exam, they didn't even know that their classmate was the one who has been their chairman for over 3 years. So until I passed the final exam, that is why I now sent them a message to say, look, because I was so busy in the work I do, I finally have passed. And they were chatting with me as if they were chatting with just those students that they met at ICAN tuition class in 2019. Little did they know that it was the executive chairman who was having lectures, that though then not an chairman, but since I was appointed, I never even mentioned to them because I was so shy in the class. Nobody knew my name. They only knew me as Muhammad, and that is just all. So they didn't even know that the Muhammad Nami that was appointed was exactly their classmate. So that was how the whole thing started. And glory be to God, we eventually got my final papers given to me by ICAN after several struggles in November 2021. So that is the short story, except you want to ask more questions about it.
Wow. That's a very interesting journey. Anyway, though rough, but of course, you agree with me that your response actually clears the air regarding some notions and thoughts from some corners that the chairman of FRS is too busy a man to actually sit down and write ICAN exams and pass. And that could be an indirect way of casting aspersion on the integrity of ICAN exams. But having heard from you, I haven't heard from you this evening, I'm sure they will be more convinced of that process, that rigorous process you have also passed through in becoming an associate member of the institute. So
No,
once again,
let me further clarify if that is the case,
okay,
because
sir.
apart from the conventional lectures I was having, now that I became FIRA chairman, I had about 2-3 people that were permanently attached to me from top notch. If I'm coming to Lagos, I come with one of them. If I'm traveling out of the country, if it's audit I want to concentrate with, I pay for their ticket, we go together. So it has been very, very, very tough with me. I don't have Saturdays, I don't have Sundays, I did not have Saturdays and Sundays throughout my first 3 years in the FIRS. So that is how we have been living my life. But little did people know that people thought those guys were one of my PAs or SAS. They were helping me to do my work. Whereas as we enter vehicle, I will ask question, what about this? How do we do this? And this is what we keep doing. But unfortunate one that even happened to me is on the last day that I was writing, on the day that I was writing case study, I will never forget that in my life. At a point, I haven't studied the question for 2 hours. I became so feverish, and at the point, I could not even lift my hand. Only to did I know that completely I had run out of sugar. So one of the examiner noticed and said, can I get you something? I said, can you get me Coke? So that day, I noted it in my diary. It's a day that if I had not gotten that counseling from the supervisor, probably I wouldn't have left that left the exam hall alive. So it's quite a tedious process, and particularly that subject called case study. I don't even wish my enemy that kind of experience again, because
Oh my goodness.
what I went through that day, I don't even wish my enemy to go through it. But
Wow,
glory
wow, wow.
be to God. That is over. Then we can now start a conversation and learn what has brought us
Wow.
together this evening.
Okay,
Great.
so you mean ICAN exams can also shake our executive chairman this way? It's interesting. You're welcome to the family. And once again, on behalf of the 59th president of the Institute, we want to say congratulations and you're welcome. So let's quickly go to reforming tax administration in Nigeria. Fumi, over to you.
All right, sir. So thank you for that beautiful encouragement for other members, because we have student members amongst us too. So my question, sir, is, you are the chief tax officer of Nigeria and the most populous Black nation. We are very proud to call ourselves that across the world. How important is tax administration and tax compliance for the internally generated revenue of the federal, state, and local government? And how can this be used as a tool for growth and development of a nation?
Okay, thank you very much for that very important question. The role of tax administration in the overall development of any nation, including Nigeria or any other country in Africa, cannot be overemphasized. Tax administration processes are executed in line with the tax policies, laws, and legislation in order to ensure smooth operations of our tax administration. Functions of revenue generation is carried out by revenue agencies established at each tier of government. This is in relation to our fiscal federalism, but FIRS principally administer taxes for federation and also for federal government when it comes to talk about issues surrounding earmark taxes. Taxes collected by FIRS are shared among the 3 tiers of government, except for those going into the consolidated revenue account, which I have mentioned before now. Though the system is still characterized by low compliance, the service has embarked on reforms which are mainly driven by four cardinal goals. They are these goals remains our guide. We have said it in different forums. For us to make any difference, when we came on board, we decided to build an institution that has customers in mind. And then the second step we took is to build an institution that has center and that is centered, that has data as one of the key instrument of delivering our mandate. And also to be able to deliver on this mandate, we also decided to improve our collaboration with stakeholders, including the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, to rebuild the institutional framework of the FRS. So we did a lot of reforms around the institution itself. So to start without taxes, having given you this background, without taxes, we cannot have governance, because it is through taxes that the government itself is funded. So at the heart of economic growth and development globally, and in Nigeria in particular, is the issue of tax. So through tax revenues, government is able to fund the provision of roads, schools, hospitals. Through tax revenue, government is able to pay salaries to judges, public servants, immigration workers, doctors, lecturers, policemen, the military, and other members of the armed forces. To emphasize also the fact that without taxes, government cannot maintain law and order. So it is through the taxes we pay that government is able to pay our security agencies. It is also through the tax revenues that government is able to buy military equipment, the weapons and amenities for our security agencies. So without tax, we cannot even have a country, talk more of an economy to grow. Also, through taxation, the government is able to redistribute income by taking from the wealthy ones, like some of you in ICAN Council, in order to provide welfare for the indigent. So when citizens pay their taxes, they make it possible for government to cater for social and economic needs.
Yeah.
Interesting. The next question I have for you here, our chairman, our global audience would be happy if you can run us through some of the challenges that is being faced by the government or the tax administrators regarding tax reforms, especially in our country, Nigeria.
So thank you so much for that important question. And I want to start by bringing to your attention or reminding us on the theme of the 2022 tax dialogue, which is the need for us to harmonize our tax system. So if you remember that theme and the issues we discussed and the communique that eventually came out of that deliberation, you will realize that the number one problem of tax administration, or that is facing us as tax administrators, whether at local government level, state, or at the national level, particularly at FRS, is lack of a harmonized tax system. We have a tax system also that is characterized by multiplicity of taxes. So that is in other words multiple taxation. And you recall the president he was sworn in recently as president of this country when he was discussing key economic reforms he wanted to carry out: removal of subsidy, unification of our exchange rate. The next and the most important thing that he made sure is tackling the issue of multiple taxation. So another key issue that faces us is resistance to technological reforms and the changes that we are carrying out. The moment you introduce technology, you see taxpayers, you see people, groups coming together to say, let's take them to court. So these are issues that has to do with resistance to technological reforms and changes that we are putting in place to either broaden the tax net, widening the tax net, or improve on our revenue collection. Another key problem that I can remember now is political will to implement reforms by government officials. So it is one thing for you to have a well thought out reform project, but another thing is for you to have the executive or the legislature or the judiciary officials having the willpower to support you in ensuring that those reforms are implemented. Then there is also issues of tax incentive, which in so many occasions we call an indiscriminate one. Incentives to people or companies that are locally based here in Nigeria, or those that are for the people that are coming from outside Nigeria to invest in our economy. Incentive is not a bad thing, but the way at and the rate at which it is given in Nigeria and the implication for it going forward because of the two-pillar solution, and particularly pillar two, which insists that for every tax that you forget, you fail to collect from any company doing business in your territory, by the time that company goes back home, the government of the country that the company, the investor come from, will surely take the tax. So one big problem that we have today is tax incentives that are given to taxpayer that is having huge impact on our collection. And another one is that obsolete laws. Though this is being addressed in recent times through the Annual Finance Act, there is still a huge problem. Stamp duty, for instance, is a law that I think was introduced around 1907. The last amendment done to it is in 1936 or 38. So these are things that are a big problem. When you denominate tax for 1 kobo and you can't even find any kobo in circulation anymore, then that becomes a problem. There is another issue of poor tax culture. Nigerians, because of probably trust deficit, people don't want to pay tax, so they look at tax as something that is either punitive or that when they pay, they don't see value for what they are paying for. Then we have issue of complexity and technicalities of tax matters, which are issues that people are introducing below in between lines when they're making laws to be able to create loopholes for them to also, or for their clients or their interest to exploit in the future. And then we have the biggest of all, the limited financial resources in the hands of individuals, companies, and investors.
Oh, thank you so much, sir, for clarifying. And I believe all of our audience are learning one or two things. And I've been seeing a lot of comments then say congratulations, and your testimony is an encouragement to a lot of people, and all that you have said, yes, we have witnessed as citizens of Nigeria. But we'd like to go on a break now and get ready. Your questions should be ready for us to read out to the Executive Chairman, FIRS. And remember, we are discussing reforming tax administration in Nigeria. So we'll go on a commercial break and we'll be right back.
As a finance professional in a disrupted business landscape, what does it take to be in demand? What does it take to attract great paying international roles? If you're an ICAN member, it'll just take one exam. That's all it takes to complete the globally recognized CIMA professional qualification and the internationally respected CGMA designation. As a CIMA member and a CGMA designation holder, employers will look at you as a finance professional, constantly acquiring new skills to add value to the business. That's why they'll be willing to pay premium to hire and retain you. If you have 5 years of relevant experience and are an ICAN member, you can directly sit for the final exam of the CIMA Professional Qualification, the Strategic Case Study exam. Start studying the CIMA Professional Qualification. Prepare to make an impact.
Welcome back from the break. Welcome back. And if you are just joining us in this program, it is your regular and insightful program, ICAN on Air. And today we have in house Mr. Muhammad Nami, the Executive Chairman of Federal Inland Revenue Service. And he's been talking to us on reforming tax administration in Nigeria. He's been answering a series of questions that has to do with reforming tax administration and other aligned questions regarding tax administration in Nigeria. Of course, he started by sharing his experience with us on how he eventually became a member of the institute. And for me, guess what? I've been seeing comments here from people that says insightful academic testimony from Mr. Nami, the FRS chairman. Nothing is impossible for a willing soul, and that's exactly what it is. Like I mentioned, some are like, can he actually still be writing exams while being the chairman and all of that? But you have heard from the horse's mouth, and that's exactly what it is. So moving on with our question, Chairman, so we want to move further. Under your watch as the executive chairman of FRS, Tax Proma's introduction has led to FRS meeting and exceeding its annual revenue targets. Sir, what exactly is the Tax Proma's magic? And was it just about the Tax Promas, or were there other additional strategies behind the scene resulting into meeting and exceeding the revenue targets of FRS?
Thank you very much. I think it's one of the most difficult questions I was avoiding, but if eventually insist I should talk to it, I have no option than to do so. The tax remarks, firstly, for an emphasis, is our in-house flagship solution for end-to-end tax administration. That means, in other words, it is a one-stop shop for taxpayers to carry out registration for tax purposes or filing of returns, payment of taxes, the download of tax clearance certificate, among several other functionality. You bear us witness that at the beginning of the year, we came up with 2 resolutions through the instrumentality of tax formats that we are going to make tax clearance certificate a 1-minute affair in as much as you pay your taxes and you have filed all returns up to date. And the second one that we introduced, also through the tax programs this year, is the new VAT filing model. Though the first one, everybody celebrated us. The second one, we disagreed a bit, but that issue has also been laid to rest. We have also continued to improve the functionalities and features of the tax promise in line with the global best practices and innovations. Also, putting into consideration the feedback we get from all stakeholders when we disagree. The magic of the tax format is simply the magic of technology. Uh, Technology makes things easier and faster. Technology plugs leakages. Technology ensures transparency and accountability. So with the tax formats, you cannot shortchange the system. With the tax formats, government gets the optimum of tax collection. It is courtesy these tax formats that we have been able to improve our collection tremendously. And last year, like you rightly pointed out, we collected over 10 trillion naira, being the highest sum ever collected by FIRS or any institution in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So we launched the tax formats in June 2021 officially. But before then, there are several trial runs issues, or we subjected the technology to trial run on some functions of registration. But in June 2021, it became the game changer because we insisted all annual tax returns are filed through the technology. But the tax format was not the only tool we deployed. Like I mentioned, we have carried out various reforms centered around 4 cardinal goals, from the utilization of data for tax administration. We even created a department for that, for data mining, intelligence gathering, to improve collaboration with stakeholders for purpose of exchange of information, expansion of the tax net, education, and enlightenment of taxpayers to retuning our institutional framework for maximum efficiency and effectiveness. So all of these have combined to bring about the results you are witnessing today.
Interesting. Thank you so much, sir. I know when I call you by the name in which not me named you, but someone else based on the feats and the success that you gained last year, you will not blame me here. So, Tosi, it's good to know that we are discussing tax matters with Mr. 10 trillion. And all right, thank you so much, sir. We are really enjoying this session, and I believe that all of our audience are having a good and interesting time with us today. So I want to ask particularly concerning the Finance Act, which has remained one of the most strategic fiscal innovations of the federal government over the past 4 years. So, but there are other things that we claim that the act has imposed, multiple taxes on businesses. Do you really agree with that? And has there been any gains that FRS has achieved over the years causing this Finance Act?
No, let me disagree with you. I don't agree that finance acts have imposed multiple taxes on businesses. Rather, it is the opposite. The Finance Acts 2019, 2020, and 2021, and the recent one, 2023, have brought about the harmonization of taxes. And also, or even if you say it has not brought about the harmonization, let me say it's laying foundation for harmonization of taxes. And also the laying foundation for harmonization of tax authorities to take care of the issues of fragmented tax system, also issues of multiple taxation. In fact, most of the provisions of the law are giving more reliefs to businesses. On the contrary, if you recall, in 2019, through the Finance Acts under reference, losses from disposal of chargeable assets for instance, are now allowed to be carried forward under the Capital Gains Tax Act. That is one. Number two, rollover relief provided for disposal of shares is now in place. Number three, which I can remember vividly, is life insurance premium paid by a person for himself, for his wife or a spouse, for a deferred annuity policy now is tax-free under Personal Income Tax Act. The fourth thing I can remember is that under the PPTA, the commissioning and abandonment contributions are now liable deductions. So all these will reduce tax payable, but government believe it will provide more funds for businesses and individuals, which also in the long run means more tax revenue for government. So for us to be specific on the gains of the Finance Act, like I mentioned, the acts on 2019, 2020, 2021 have provided us the ability to now digitize our operations and thereby improving tax compliance and tax administration in Nigeria. If not for the Finance Act, you will agree with me that even the tax poor marks that we are currently celebrating would not have been able to deploy it. Second thing that I can easily remember is that it's true, the Finance Act 2019 also that created what we call significant economic presence rule, which now allows us to tax non-resident companies providing digital services in Nigeria. Before then, they were doing business and they were not paying taxes, and the small businesses in Nigeria who will have to rent shops, employ staff, struggle to power their processes, were paying taxes. Another thing I can remember is the significant economic presence rule mandates non-resident suppliers of digital services to Nigeria to now register with us, collect VAT, and remit them to us. So several companies like Google, Facebook, YouTube, etc., are currently now complying with this. So the fourth thing I can easily remember is that the Finance Act 2019 also exempts small and medium companies whose turnovers are below 25 million naira from acting as agents of collecting or paying value-added tax, though they are required to file annual returns so that we're able to monitor to find out at what point they are able to exceed that threshold as far as their transactions are concerned. The last point that I can easily remember also is that companies who turnover are between 25 million to 100 million have their company's income tax reduced from 30% that it was in 2018-2019 to 20% for 2020 year of assessment, as from 2020 year of assessment. However, companies with turnover from 100 million and above still pay the taxes. Their tax rates, income tax rates, still remain at 30%.
Wow. That's interesting, Chairman. But a leading question here, just like when you just finished explaining the small companies, the medium companies, and the large companies based on their turnover threshold. So one of the audience here wants to know, Raphael Unyo says, Executive Chairman, sir, how practicable it is to deduct withholding taxes on the invoices of companies with less than 25 million naira turnover when such companies should no longer pay tax, of course, pay company income tax. So how practicable should they go ahead to deduct the tax from their invoices?
Okay, thank you so much. There is no law except maybe, or no book, except the Quran and Bible that is perfect. And that is why we so value the finance bits annual exercise, so that where we decide to block certain leakage or give certain incentive, that is, in other words, when you attempt to solve a problem, you do not create one. But all these issues were adequately addressed in our information circular that we issue that particular year. The essence of supporting any company with 25 million and below is for them to have funds, for them to be able to do further business with you and grow to become large taxpayer or medium taxpayers too. So it's an interesting question that has been raised, which I think the law actually did not envisage. We look at it and see what was our position in the information circular, so that I don't give a different position, and then we'll get back to Mr. Raphael through the institute, and then that is the beauty of this kind of engagement. I have never been thrown into a difficult moment like this simple question, because it's quite a huge gap that the law did not envisage.
Thank you so much, sir. I mean, while you were talking, I saw Olalekan Shukoya's comment. He said he was just trying to comment on tax promax. He said digitization of tax administration in the country via tax promax really helps revenue collection growth of the FRS. So thank you so much for that remark. Chairman, I just want to ask a question because I'm looking at our time and it's fast spent, right? So there is an ongoing debate amongst fiscal experts as to whether the government should increase tax rates, especially given the relatively low rate of taxes in Nigeria, or whether they should expand the tax net, given the relatively low number of persons who pay tax already. What is your take on this, sir? And how can Nigerian government improve the tax collections without necessarily hurting the citizens?
Well, this is a topic that we debate every day. We have school of thought that insists, for instance, value-added tax rate of 7.5 remains the lowest on the continent of Africa. We also have a school of thought that said the VAT rate of 7.5, in view of the hardship that currently people are going through as a result of probably some reforms that the government is doing, particularly with the removal of subsidy, should remain what it is, but we should rather expand the tax base for now. So I believe that what we need to do is my own position, not the position of FRS, is to sustain our focus on expanding the tax base for now. Our focus should be on bringing more Nigerians or businesses to pay taxes at the existing rate. In order to achieve this, we need to harmonize our tax system. I've emphasized that before, so that we're able to bring as many Nigerians and businesses into tax net as possible. On our part at the FRS, we are using data and intelligence gathering in an unprecedented way to bring Nigerians and businesses who are hitherto not in the tax net into the tax net. So I should mention that in the long run, there may be the need to increase our tax rate in some cases, especially, like I said, of VAT, which is an indirect tax. But for example, when VAT, one compared to others, like I have actually mentioned before. Our current national tax policy provides that we should have a shift from, also our current national tax policy also advise that we should shift from direct to indirect taxes. So Valade is one of these indirect taxes, so we may have to move from the current 7% to a higher percentage depending on the philosophy of the government and the peculiarity of our economy at a particular point in time in the future. But as it is today, I'm one of those that believe in the school of thought that said we should expand our tax name and not increase any tax rate for now. But I'm not giving this position on behalf of the government or the Federal Inland Revenue Service. It's my own personal opinion.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairman. Our time is fast spent. So, as we custom and from your previous responses, it appears as if there are so many hidden opportunities for professional accountants in tax practice. Please, can you unveil some of those opportunities to our teaming professional accountants that are watching and carefully listen to you right now, sir?
Thank you so much. There is hardly any opportunity that is hidden. I'm sure we all know this. There are, however, some gains that you can stand to enjoy if you advise your clients very well.
In this tutorial, we'll be exploring the StreamYard Studio. We'll also be going live. In the previous tutorial, we created a broadcast. Now let's enter that broadcast. Every time you enter the broadcast, you'll see a tip and be given the opportunity to check your equipment and set your name. So
say that firms can also consider exchange programs among themselves and with tax authorities. At the FRS, for instance, we also place priority when we recruit on professionals such as professional accountants. What I mean there is that since I came on board, I want to encourage the young accountants that don't just write ICAN and say you want to be an accountant. There's an opportunity when you take taxation as a profession. Since I came on board, and to prove that point, I think I have brought on board over 500 chartered accountants through competitive process. So I can assure you that when you qualify, you have a profession in tax practice or tax administration.
Thank you so much, sir. So to our professional accountants in tax practice, Chairman has given you that very beautiful advice. So because of the worth of time, just in closing, sir, ICAN is always open to ideas that will positively advance the growth of our members and the professional for all accountants and the Nigerian business environment at large. What is your advice or what is your suggestion on how we can further contribute to the discourse on general tax platform reforms, especially in Nigeria?
Well, let me start by advising ICAN to stop case study because that one almost killed the executive chairman of ICAN. So if you drop case study from your professional examination process, I think sky is going to be the limit for ICAN. Be that as may, I want to advise that as ICAN, I want you to be part of the process of tax reform, especially participating in the reforms during public hearing and stakeholder consultation that leads to finance acts and tax law amendment and review processes. So there are three processes here: the review of the tax law itself, the tax law amendment itself, and when they are being discussed in the open. So I want to advise ICAN and their members to be actively involved in all of these processes. Number two, I want them to continue, or ICAN to continue to contribute to the discourse through writing articles, participating in media engagements, and educating the general public on tax matters through your platforms. And finally, but not the least, organize seminars, as you're always doing, symposiums, webinars like this one, for us to have very healthy conversations around tax reforms, around tax matters, and what we need to do to improve tax administration in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our Executive Chairman, Mr. Mohamed Nami, for coming on board today. It's been interesting with you. I would wish we could have like 2 hours for this session. I can even see people already asking for part 2 of this program, that we're going to bring you back in a short while to complete our talk on this discussion. We want to say a very big thank you to you today for coming on the show and for sharing your wealth of experience with us. On behalf of the producers of this program and editorial team and our viewers across the globe, we appreciate your time and effort. And we hope that when next we call on you, sir, you will hearken our call. Thank you very much, our chairman, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you for
so
having
much,
me.
Mr. 10 Trillion. Thank you for having us too. All right, so thank you so much, sir. So we'd like to read out some announcements. So we have a lot of MCP sessions and training. So information technology and consulting faculty, we have a training coming up June 19th to June 23rd and December 4th to 8th. So please feel free to check on the website or reach out to anyone within the ICAN or the institute to give you more information. We'd like to say thank you, everyone. My name remains Fumi Olani, and my co-anchor,
I'm Tosin Akinwumi. I'm so sure that you enjoyed today's session. Apologies, we couldn't take all your questions because you know that we do not just have much time today. We say thank you for being on here with us today. Have a safe and sound evening. Bye for now.
Goodbye.